Hello everyone. Thank you all the attendees for joining us today. I hope all the attendees had a great networking with your peers in our networking lounges. A very good afternoon to all of you. I'm Snehil welcoming you all on behalf of Solar Quarter and First View Group to our webinar on SolarRoofs Market Outlook Maharashtra. So before starting today's proceeding, I take this opportunity to thank and welcome our partner for this event, SunGrow. We have a short video of SunGrow requesting my team to start playing the video, please. Thank you, team, for playing the sponsor video. Now, without any further delay, let's begin with session. And this session, we will be starting with a sponsor presentation by Mr. Rajan Munjal from SunGrow India. Welcome on screen, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'll be taking a very few minutes of yours by giving a small presentation. I hope everyone can see my screen. Yeah.
Yes, sir, we can see.
Okay. Hi, this side Rajan Munjal, and I'm handling the channel sales business for Sungrow India. And today I'm here to share some of the key points where Sungrow is standing today and how Sungrow India is doing for from Indian perspective. Who is Sangro? Sangro is a company who is still from last 3 consecutive years. We are ranking as a most bankable inverter company worldwide. So if you see, Sangro is the only company who ranked as a 100% bankable from last 3 years, and that's report always generated by the company named Bloomberg. Talking about extensive footprints across globe, we have now standing up where 224 gigawatt as inverter is already installed in India, and that's not restricted to any specific location. We have supplied to more than 150 countries and regions, and there are 200 service outlets which we are running with them. And in India, I'm happily announcing that we have already crossed 12 gigawatt of shipments. And other than that, if you see South Africa, MENA region, Europe 14 gigawatt, etc. So these are certain examples where our inverter have been installed in cold desert area, in rooftops, and so many locations. Talking about how this supply has been made, we have now a global production capacity is up to 90 gigawatt. That's include our Indian capacity, which has now becoming 3 gigawatt to 10 gigawatt factory, and that same in the Bangalore only, wherein we are manufacturing string inverters and central inverter both. And talking about China's factory, we have now 80 gigawatt per year of the capacity. That's in string. That's completely into on-grid inverters. And then we have a capacity of energy storage system also, which equals to 6 gigawatt. So, what is Sangro India? How our journey has started? So, our journey has started in 2014, where we have supplied our first project in India, that is in Badla with string inverters only. If you see, it has now completing 8 years, and the entire system is running fine, and we are getting appreciation also from the same customer. And then in 2015, we have dispatched our first central inverter dispatch from China, where in the same location nearby, which is in Pokhran, and 2017, where we have crossed our first benchmark, which is 1 gigawatt shipment in India, and 2018, where we have decided to start our local manufacturing, that's in Bangalore, with a capacity of 3 gigawatt, and 2019, we have exported our inverters, made in Indian inverters, to global market also, and US market, etc. And 2020, we have achieved next shipment, which is like 5 gigawatt shipments in India. And then 2021, we have crossed 10 gigawatt shipment now. And currently, it is approximate 11.5 gigawatt shipment has already done in India. And if you see the number of sources wherein we have been recognized as top inverter supplier company in India, uh, there are reports from Bridge to India, Solar Quarter, EQ, etc. Marco. Growing numbers comes with growing days with growing numbers. We have now in India crossed more than 2,800 days, which is the running successfully, and 11 gigawatt shipment is already crossed, as I mentioned, and 40,000 inverters in India have already been supplied. So that's a big number, biggest number, and this has been installed in more than 25 plus states. Talking about Indian team, now we have a team of more than 250 people. That's include our local manufacturing team also. So, as I mentioned, that 10 gigawatt production capacity has been built in India, wherein we are trying to integrate all the manufacturing, not just assembling unit. We have also have SMT lines and all. And talking about Indian factory achievement, we have shipped 12 gigawatt shipment from Indian factory. 16,000 inverter has been manufactured here, and 30 plus model has been manufactured with 250 plus job has been created. Talking about biggest service network, we have 35 in-house team, and that has been operating in more than 12 locations. And then we have 10 plus warehouses and repair centers. And talking about Indian products which we are selling, starting from utility, we have central inverter with 5 megawatt, 3.125 megawatt, 250 kilowatt, and we are now soon launching two 320 HX also. And in C&I, we have obviously we have 110 CX that are installed in more than 700 megawatt capacity in India now, and 33 plus 50 CX are already supplying. And residential also we have launched this year, starting from 5 kilowatt to 12 kilowatt to three phase and 15 and 20. And we have subsidized monitoring solution also, wherein we are supplying our some of the monitoring solution which suits Indian conditions and Indian facilities. Talking about utility scale system, we have the most largest inverters, which has been supplied in approximate 3 gigawatt in India now, which is 250 HX. And utility, we have 5 megawatt and 3.1215 megawatt, as I mentioned. And these are certain C&I system solutions also. In residential, as I mentioned, we have now three-phase solutions only, starting from 5 kilowatt to 20 kilowatt. So these are the made in India products which we build, starting from 5 kilowatt to till 5 megawatt. All the products has been manufacturing in India now. And these are certain certifications we have already got from so many sources, wherein we have been recognized as a number one supplier. And we do believe that in India, if we were working for solar, we're working for renewable, we should also think upon doing some CSR activity, where we do a lot of CSR activity by providing tree plantation drive, which happened in last year, and this is also we are driving across India. So this kind of activity we always do. And as we mentioned, we have a biggest team in solar industry. We work as a team. So in India, when everyone thinking sitting at home due to COVID and that situation, also we working and providing solutions and service to our end customers. Some of repeated clients, as you see, we have now able to supply to almost all developer and EPC in India now. And if you see, all the names are here. So thank you. That's it from my side. Over to Snehal. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for the insightful presentation. Now it's time to begin with our much awaited panel discussion, which is on SolarRoofs Market Outlook Maharashtra. And to discuss this, we have in panel with us Mr. Gautam Das from Ujin Clean Tech Private Limited, who is the moderator for the session, Ms. Ritu Lal from Amplus Solar, Mr. Nishant Raj from Radiance Renewables, Mr. Ashish Singh from Galaxy Solar Energy, Mr. Aditya Malpani from AMP Energy India, Mr. Somajit Paul from Celestial Renew Experts LLP, Mr. Hiten Parekh from Solar Square Energy Private Limited, Mr. Ronak Muthian from Kalpa Power. Before starting the session, I'll request all the attendees to post your questions in Q&A box. Our attendees will take these questions in the end of the session. Over to you, Gautam, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Snail. Thanks, Rajan, for the presentation. So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining the session. Welcome to the session. So, small two housekeeping announcement. One is Snehil already called out that in case you have any question, please keep typing there. We'll probably address them at the end of the presentation or towards the end at least. And second thing, Snehil, if anyone has any network issue, me or anybody, you can probably, specifically call out to others or to that person also, so that the whole discussion flow is not interrupted.
Sure, sir, sure.
Sure. So before we get into the actual topic, we'd prefer that all the speakers and the participants, please introduce yourself and your company. Keep it very short, maybe less than a minute. I think then we'll get to know each other better, and probably the audience also can frame the questions accordingly. So you can start with Ritu, if you please introduce yourself and your company, and then we'll go one by one.
Thank you, Gautam. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay, great. So I represent a company called Amplus Solar. So we are among the earliest C&I developers in the country where we started working at offering the PPA model to C&I clients with our first installation coming up in 2014. And from there to now, we are hitting a gigawatt of scale. Again, most of it in the C&I space, and most of that growth is entirely organic, largely consisting of on-site and rooftop, and a fairly substantial open access portfolio as well. So very excited to be here and look forward to the discussion.
Great, great. Thanks, Ritu. Hiten, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks, Gautam. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hiten Parekh. I work as Chief Business Officer at Solar Square Energy. We are a young 7-year-old company, and we build solar assets.
Hiten, your network is little poor, maybe. Okay. Thanks, Hiten. Ashish, you'd like to introduce yourself, please? Am I audible?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Okay. So Ronak, we'll move to Ronak. We can't. At least I can't hear us.
Can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes, Ashish, we can hear you.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So hi. I represent a company called as Galaxy Solar Energy over here, and basically Galaxy is working into capex, and now they have been working into capex model into C&I segment majorly, rooftop, ground mount both verticals, and now we have entered into OPEX model also, wherein we are catering around right now around focusing on 4 to 5 states: Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal, eastern part basically, and Jharkhand. So this is how, and we are excited to take this journey of OPEX model that we have recently started with into the next deep. Yeah,
Great. Thanks,
thanks.
Ashish. So Ronak, over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Gautam. So, yeah, I'm Ronak Muthian. I am the founder of Kalpa Power. We are a young company, just 5 years old. We'll be finishing 5 years this month. We've been working pan India, right from Tamil Nadu, right up till Haryana, further up into Uttarakhand and Himachal as well. So I've done approximately 100 odd megawatts of largely rooftop CNI and ground mounted captive projects. Excited to be here and would love to hear what everyone has to say. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Ronak. Somajit, what do you?
Thank you, Gautam. So I'm Soumyajit Paul, founder of Celestial Renew Experts. So we are based out of Pune, and we are basically the major channel partner for Sangro inverters. So we are taking care of state of Maharashtra, Goa, and Central India, that is in Madhya Pradesh as well as Chhattisgarh. And also we are also supplying modules. Okay, so majorly we have been for working here in Maharashtra for last 6 years, and our team are majorly now concerned with only catering to specific inverter and modules and providing solution for that. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Somajit. Aditya, you'd like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi. I'm from AMP Energy. I'm looking after the business development for open access as well as a regional head for Western region. So AMP is one of the unique triple play IPP with presence in both behind the meter projects, significant presence in open access as well as utility scale project. Now, since we're talking about Maharashtra, we have a very large focus and existing portfolio of Maharashtra, almost 120, 125 megawatt operational capacity in next 2 months we will be achieving. It includes operational capacity and construction. Right. So we'll be sharing our experience in Maharashtra and like how we can expand the business for the entire industry.
Great. Thanks, Aditya. My name is Gautam. I represent a company. I'm the founder of Urjan Cleantech. It's a company co-founded by my IIT batchmates and ex-bankers. I used to work with a foreign bank for about 16 odd years. So Urjan enables financing and turnkey project for distributed solar consumers. We have deployed about 700 crores so far, and we are operational across 15 states and union territories. We are operational for hardly about 4 to 5 years now in terms of operations, and you're looking forward to finance and execute more projects, primarily in the distributed solar space. So thank you everyone for the introduction. I mean, the topic says that outlook in Maharashtra, but anybody has anything to say about the overall ecosystem or the your experience across other states, please feel free to share that. And there are a couple of aspects we'll discuss. One is the ecosystems. It's about policy, regulation, whether it's over or under. There could be, of course, Ritu is there with representing asset company. So her experience about, I mean, how productive the investment is and the difficulties in deployment of money. And similarly, we have like hardware companies as well who are representing, and they can talk about more technology and the uncertainties around hardware supply, which is going on as of now. So you can start with maybe the ecosystem. I think the space is reasonably crowded. The entry barrier is very low. There are a lot of hurdles we have to face every day in executing and on not only onboarding, in executing the projects as well, including synchronization of the grid. So anyone want to specifically talk about keep the whole discussion little forward looking. Of course, there will be some issues, but you call out them and how could be the possible solution. So you can start with maybe Ritu. I mean, if you can share your thoughts about the ecosystem.
Okay, so in the ecosystem, let me first talk about the opportunity, right? Now, as a very large and high population and highly industrialized state, right? The opportunities are enormous. So, which is why, I think, Gautam, you would not have been part of an organization like this if you felt that despite the crowding of the marketplace, there is, going to be a shortage, it's too crowded and there is not enough opportunity, or that, other companies like Amplas, have been there like 5 years or 4 years before us. So the fact is that at least for a lot of the country, and especially for Maharashtra, it is dense with industry, right? The second thing is that it's got among the highest tariffs in the country. So if you look at especially commercial tariff in Maharashtra, again, very high density of commercial clients, right? Commercial tariff in Maharashtra is so high that I think every format of renewable energy, you add storage to the mix also, I mean, perhaps for Maharashtra commercial, it will not be too expensive, right? So the high tariff structure again makes it a very, very opportune state. So I think even if they were to levy higher per unit charges, at least on the commercial side, it would, the arithmetic would still be in favor. Of course, the challenges that one faces are policy uncertainty, which is true for the entire country. But despite policy challenges, I think for all of us developers, Maharashtra has been one of the biggest markets, right? So a lot of, my first client, the very first business that we set up was on the rooftop of an engineering college in Nagpur. So for us, Maharashtra has a very special place because our second project also came up in Maharashtra. It was a hotel in, near Lonavala. So for us, it's been such an integral part of our growth and development. It is what nurtured Amplus and then led to us, becoming what we are today. Uh, I don't think, yes, of course, you can turn around and say that a lot of the cream segment has already adopted solar, but this is just the beginning. There are many, many other organizations, and we shouldn't only focus on, the AAA large companies. There is a huge market unexplored of MSMEs that is needing, waiting, wanting renewable energy that organizations like us haven't really been able to help much because of credit issues, etc. But the appetite is very strong. The appetite is also very strong today with individual homeowners, where relatively speaking, I find Maharashtra, a mixed bag. But that's more because of the kind of rooftops that we have. It's a lot of high-rise buildings and condos and multi-floors. So obviously, in cities with that kind of a structure, opportunities population-wise tend to be a little lower. But again, it's probably, as a state, got the highest number of cities in the country. So there again, if you look at Nagpur and other places which are not very vertical, there are huge opportunities. So the market is very strong. We'll handle the regulatory. That's how this sector has grown, right? The rooftop sector has grown to what it has, not because of policy, but despite policy. So we've always had to, navigate around that. And I think we're going to continue to navigate around that. The last point I want to make is I know it's not specifically Maharashtra, but the current policy changes, and especially with the ALMM sword hanging over us, our heads, I think we are facing an existential threat. So I wonder if states can turn around and defy it. I don't know how that will work within the, regulatory and constitutional framework of the country. But at this point in time, the biggest threat we are facing is ALMM and its implications on solar rooftop as an industry, more than any specific policy or any other issue. Opportunities remain very, very strong.
Absolutely agree with you. I mean, in terms of scoping, the market is big enough for coexistence of many, many people. Having said that, in terms of ecosystem, as you said, ALMM, there are too many uncertainties which can make the whole price volatile, and at the same time, it can impact the pace as well, right? I mean, 1 kilowatt of solar you can compare with like one smartphone, and you write that up in 3 years, and this 1 kilowatt can save your electricity, at least in a commercial tariff in Bombay, it's like say 4.6 lakh rupees in the lifetime. But in spite of that, unfortunately, the adoption has been very, very slow. Now, as you spoke about the uncertainty, there are too many things happening at the same time, which is BCD is coming. India can hardly produce about 25% of the solar panels at this stage, but still there is ALMM and BCD is coming. That created a lot of uncertainties, at least toward the financial year end, and there is uncertainty most likely to continue in the next quarter as well. So over to you, maybe Ronak, what do you think? I mean, where the business is going, whether it's sustainable, what the EPCs or the probably asset investors should do now? What do you, Ronak?
So yeah, so I think so. I'll just want to probably segue into what Ritu mentioned in terms of policy uncertainty and states probably taking a call on their own, and then try to bring back into contexts with the state that we are discussing here about Maharashtra. So I think Maharashtra by far has had the most amount of how can I say I wouldn't say forward looking, but at least a long term price, sort of long term range certainty, which mentions to do with till we get to 2000 megawatts of rooftop solar. We don't intend to roll back on the net metering policy, or even with regards to what happened. I think it was 6 months back, if I'm not mistaken, or probably a little before that, about the consumer right bill, which was passed with regards to having the 500 or 10 kilowatt net metering to be a right, and 500 kilowatt cap. Again, the industries minister and the state minister for energy came up and said that we don't intend to change. So being a federal structure, I believe, Ritu, that's what makes our job interesting in terms of really trying to work within the Swiss cheese where we do. So I believe very honestly, power being a state subject but funded by central SOPs is always going to have this push and pull. So I just wanted to try and bring that into context for everyone. So I personally am a more optimist in terms of how this ALMM is going to play out, because I have had quite serious discussions with folks in Maharashtra at the highest level in DISCOMs and regulatory commissions, and I don't see an urgency for them, nor do I see an intent for them or any commercial benefit for them to go ahead and switch that over to that ALMM piece very soon. Yes, there might be there are mandates for these state and central organizations wherever there are state fundings to be used. That yes, ALMMs will start uh, coming into flavor or coming into favor. But I think it's still much better than what was 2 years ago with DCR sort of coming into favor, where I think Maharashtra is a classic case where there was 125 megawatts of a residential rooftop policy announced, and the entire state sort of fraternity for solar was up in arms. And I think there was a huge protest from Nagpur to Mumbai about sort of not implementing that scheme. I think Hiten might be a better person to talk about that, but I know that there have been botched policies done before. But with this current context, I don't see them sort of pushing that buzzer anytime soon.
Sure. Thanks, Ronak. Over to Hiten. I mean, finally, this uncertainty continues. It could be anxiety. Finally, it may settle down to a better price. Of course, BCD and all put together in a longer term, I mean, we all will be benefited. But the current uncertainty, I mean, the pace of solar adoption is very, very important. I mean, historically, whatever you've done, every year almost we are adding that much capacity. So, in terms of uncertainty and how probably the market will pan out in terms of pricing, your comment, Hiten.
Yeah, hi. I agree with my fellow panelists, both Ronak and Ritu, that Maharashtra being one of the most dense states and one of the largest industrial states, and the arbitrage between the commercial and the industrial tariffs and the LCOE for a good quality rooftop solar plant, I feel there is enough meat to still absorb the hit and the price increase in the modules, be it on the premise of ALMM or BCD. So I personally hope, and I think that it should not be a deterrent for slowing down the pace of solar, because the state is still allowing net metering options. The education done by a lot of players in the state, the consumers' demand is constantly growing. However, I do wish that the state could learn a little bit from states like Gujarat and down south, Tamil Nadu and Telangana, and if they could implement more digital tools to make the solar processing of metering issues to be expedited, I feel the state could easily achieve a 1 gigawatt of rooftop installation year on year basis.
And Hiten, I believe Maharashtra is one of the state where unless you reach that 2 gigawatt cap, your net metering can be up to 1 megawatt. It cannot be only to 500 kilowatt, right?
Yes, that's really the beauty of the state, and that is really allowing a lot of players like us to keep our intent and our attention on Maharashtra being one of the top five states where we would like to deploy our time, money, and energy.
Okay, absolutely, absolutely. Assis, you have any comment on this piece? I mean, whether it's like being over-regulated at creating uncertainty, and hopefully that the pace of solar adoption will not change. Ashish, I can't hear you.
Hello,
Yes, Ashish, we can hear
can
you.
you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Thanks, Gautam. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, as already everybody has pointed out, see, the market is very exciting as we have now planned and we have in pipeline to do somewhere around 126 megawatt to be precise. This coming financial year we'll be doing, and this will be majorly from C&I segment only. So, and now to as we have started from Maharashtra basically, and we have done a lot of projects around approximately till date we have done around 35 to 40 megawatt in Maharashtra itself. We are seeing Maharashtra a very potential state, and as far as growth part is concerned in Maharashtra for C&I segment is very huge. But at the same time, the problem is with the C&I segment when you are going around in the C&I segment, you need to basically we are facing the challenges of things coming up around like ALMM, BCD, which everybody has pointed out. The problem is not ALMM. The problem is basically we don't have capacity right now, and with the very small amount of capacity, and basically for around 540 watt peak modules, which have now been into the trend. And C&I segment, you go anywhere to the customer, they have this thing into their mind of putting up 540 watt peak module to maximize their capacity, right? So now the thing is that once you don't have you don't have this 540 watt peak modules in India, you have this challenge. You have only one or two players, and still the capacity you cannot basically rely on. So that is the challenge that I'm foreseeing will be there at least for next 6 to 7 months. I am pretty hopeful that seeing the condition and seeing the targets that government has basically made for renewables, they probably have to, they may have to go and approve Chinese manufacturers also, and have to bring them into ALM if they are basically targeting, if they are basically wanting this target to fulfill. Otherwise, there will be a huge problem. This is what the problem per se I am feeling.
Okay.
As far as the potential is, there is huge potential. There is no issue in that.
Absolutely, absolutely. See, I share similar thought. In fact, I mean, the scope is huge, the market size is very, very large, but the demand supply, the mismatch make imbalance the whole pace of adoption. I mean, India will not be able to produce so much immediately, as at least looks like in 6 months, to produce so much of panels and cater to the demand. So there, of course, the ALMM approval should be extended to maybe many imported panels. Of course, that will include looks like Chinese because they are the biggest supplier today. Somajit is here, who represents a hardware company and supplying panel and inverter. Somajit, your opinion about the demand supply balancing, I mean, which is critical for at least next 4 5 months, given the BCD and ALM affected immediately.
Correct. I think we are having a good traction in the market presently. Post pandemics, also we have seen that the surge in the market has been quite good, and with that, even the business that we have been looking at forward has been really interesting. Means the Y on Y, the growth that our company have done is about 100%, which looks that and which gives us some speculation that definitely the market is having a good requirement for the solar. They are now very much confident about the solar. So this kind of activity, when because if you see, as with my perspective, when I'm going to the customer, because when I see beyond them, so normally we are selling both the things, inverter as well as the panels. So what happens today that the end customer is a bit in a jittery there whether to go or not, because today they are in confusion whether in this period there will be rise in the price, there will be availability of the Indian models, or we have to go with the Chinese one, because there are two different kind of customers today. A lot of people, a lot of customers today attract and they require Chinese models for the imported ones. Many people prefer the Indian models. So today, looking at this part, I think it has become a bit difficult for us, and even it is a bit confusion state, which we feel that if there's some kind of clarity from the government side, which if the narratives, if there's a constant narrative from the government for the next few months, because this period, if you see this last quarter of India, that's January, February, and March, it is quite a demanding state demanding months when we have a good business. At the same time, a lot of industrial customers and CNI look forward for reducing their taxations also. But at this state, the confusion has created a kind of a situation, a panic situation also. You can say that people are even in a state where they are saying that, okay, let us see if the ALM is postponed, then that means we can go for the Chinese panel, or for the imported ones, if they are looking that if the ALM remains, that means you have to go with the Indian panels, but the sizing that is not available still. There is a lot of uncertainty in the sizes of the panels, because still, if you see the ALM list, then most of the manufacturers are having sizes which are around like 400 to 450 watt peak, which is not at all today the demand of the market. So I think there we have to have some clarification from the government, and it has to be fast, because we don't want to lose the trend today, because this is the place where we are in quite a big rush. All the players are looking at the big numbers, and the number that we even the government is expecting from the people and from the the entire market. I think this kind of barriers are going to be hindrance, and so there has to be something clarification on that.
Absolutely, and we hope that this thing will be clarified. At least the uncertainty will go away, and the price will settle down. The panel what used to buy for example, say 20 rupees or 21 rupees per
Correct.
watt, it has gone to 23, 24 now
Absolutely.
because of this anxiety and uncertainty. And hopefully there'll be some clarification coming, and it will settle down soon.
Even even on our part also, we are even confused whether to not to import the models because we don't want to take the hit, because if the ALM remains and we import the modules, so in the month of April we are going to be in a very peculiar position. So we are also like the sellers are also in a very peculiar state now. What to do? What the state has to be.
But one thing broadly is clear, Somajit, is wherever you have the net metering feasibility and the approval is in place. So in those cases, you can use imported panels, even if it is extended beyond 31st March. So that should take care of some part of anxiety. Second part is, I mean, everybody would agree that solar is environmentally responsible and commercially highly viable, because this is one of the asset which gives probably for end consumer who is paying 15 rupees, it can give you return as high as 30% plus. And even for OPEX investor, unleveraged without considering loan, it can give you 12 to 15% kind of return. And when you have access to low cost fund, it can give you as high as like 18 or 20% when you are leveraged, when you have access to low cost fund. Still, I mean, this asset is most productive if you compare with equity, commodity, currency, real estate. But unfortunately, the adoption has been not so exponential. Maybe it's because of the issue, because it could be the access to financing, it could be technology or anything. So we'll start with Ritu. I mean, you are into the asset business. You're deploying capital, which you are getting certain yield. So what do you think? How can the pace can be picked up? Can financing be an instrument?
Um, Financing for the rooftop sector has always been a challenge, and here I'm not speaking from an M plus perspective, because that would be very misleading, because if you look at the entire sector, finance is a massive challenge. If you look at M plus, finance never really has been a challenge. So, for example, when you talk about the cost of debt,
Mhm,
so I think we've been the largest recipient of the World Bank line of credit that SBI had, disbursed.
mhm,
Uh, but and part of that has also been because of how we have conducted business.
mhm,
The quality of clients that we've got, the quality of assets that we have, and the quality of people that we have. So that inspires a lot of confidence, and which will help you get funding. But outside of that SBI line, and there was one ADB line which was meant to have come in, which has changed banks, but so far nothing really has got disbursed. The bulk of the funding in rooftop has been coming from NBFCs,
mhm,
right? So there immediately there is a higher cost of capital, right? There is a mismatch between the kind of asset life cycle of solar and the timelines for even long term debt,
mhm,
right? Most companies don't have access to good quality debt. Even what they are getting from NBFCs is very, very limited. Residential sector is again struggling. If I as an individual want to set up solar on my house and I want to avail of bank financing, it is not easy to get. So that is a massive challenge. As solar becomes more expensive, challenge will increase, but more than the cost. The BCD will have an impact commercially. It may dampen the amount of solar that will come in, but it's not a matter of uncertainty. It's very well known. It's the imposition of ALLM on net metering projects, on open access. So virtually today, every project that you set up, I mean, and for those who think behind the meter projects are going to get exempt, they're mistaken. So other than a completely off-grid project, every solar installation is going to be hit by ALMM, right? What is the quality that you're going to get? There is a supply-demand mismatch, right? You do not have high-efficiency modules. Now, these are, and apart from the policy challenges for the future, these are the aspects which are going to cause uncertainty at a never-before-seen scale. For a lot of the companies which are under ALMM, your financiers will not be willing to back them. And I can't blame them either. So the government can say what the government wants about, you don't have to follow Bloomberg tier rating and this is what it is. But it's private investment. Even if it's a public sector bank, how can, the government force any lender to lend to somebody, right? So this uncertainty which is now coming in is going to, in fact, be very, very backbreaking in terms of finance for the rooftop sector. So let's see how that plays out. For the next 24 odd months, um, if we are able to get high technology, innovative, high efficiency modules, which I hope will come in after the PLI scheme that has been announced, at least on the supply front, we're going to get good modules that we'll be very, very happy with. I don't know the price point at which these will be available. Nobody knows that right now, yes. Whether it's going to be at imported modules plus 40% or plus 20%. So that the price part of it remains undecided, but at least there is fairly high confidence that I have that under the PLI scheme, when you're doing an integrated manufacturing gigawatt scale line, starting from polysilicon all the way to modules, I should be able to get, appropriate high-tech modules for usage. So that is where things stand today. Very, very uncertain times. So I don't know how financiers are going to react to this.
Only my comment on that, Ritu, is PLI and on this scheme, it's easy to see, but finally that benefit percolating to the panel level and consumer or an EPC getting benefit. Typically, any regulatory policy implementation, there is a lag. That could be like you getting the benefit at the ground level. That may take about a year.
Yeah.
But I think by then the supply chain hopefully should be much settled. So that time lag may not be so productive use as far as.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know 24 months from now how things are going to be, but for the next 18 to 24 months, it's very chaotic.
Okay. Anyone else wants to talk on this? I mean, how can we enhance I have few points, but how can you enhance access of, enable access of fund to the end consumer of the EPCs? Are anyone of you enabling financing for end consumer?
So, hi Gautam, this is Ron here. So, I have probably seen a trend where we have been discussing with customers. So, generally, solar we have seen is a long capex cycle or a long decision cycle. So, I always have a quip within our sales folks where if the customer says, what's the options of financing, and then if he comes back and Googles on Solar Mango and says that there is capex, opex, and deferred capex, then I put that probability on my CRM as a very low conversion cycle, because for him to understand the complexities and then make a decision and come to sort of a closure is a very long time. So what I have ideally seen over the last year and a half, and this is especially after the GECL line have been disbursed, that is the government infused credit guarantee schemes that have come along. We've seen customers who are on the fence on a capex opex cycle. asking around people in the industry, and probably Ritu and Aditya might be the best sort of counter to this point. But we have seen people where they were going towards an OPEX or a RESCO model of financing, really trying to evaluate, really trying to make sort of the CapEx possible by themselves, because they have seen customers now who are doing 6-7 years into a PPA. And now the 6-7 year PPA guys are, I know this technology works. If someone would have just told me that it worked 6 years back, I wouldn't have signed a PPA, because now I know that it's a very, very prohibitively high cost that I have to continue paying for the next 20 years or 15 years of the remainder of the life. So I believe most businesses, as the solar industry is innovative in its survival, most businesses are the same, right? Be it the auto, pharma, textile, whoever chemical segments that we talk about, or even institutional financing. I have seen a general shift, at least in the MSMEs industry, also in the large corporates, where they're slowly starting to notice and take cognizance in budgets, in long-term forecasts of having some sort of renewable energy done as a part of the project proposal, as a part of the next year or the 24 months or the 36 months credit cycle, and make sort of provisions for financing solar. And what's happening with that is, yes, there is a longer gestation for sure, but I'm seeing a slow but gradual shift towards a more I don't know, capex funded cycle. And the only reason is what they were most worried about was the credit quality sort of. One is the quality risk, which is taken care by a lot of the consultants and the EPC fraternity by themselves, where we are able to point out what he doesn't have and what I have and what is best and what is not. And also with just the performance risks of the technology working. So I don't know. I would really like to hear from Aditya and Ritu as to, do you see this? I don't know, Gautam, you are financing projects on both sides. What is your take? Because we do OPEX ourselves, but that's a very smaller piece for a very limited set of clients.
So we'll listen to Aditya first, and I have a few comments on financing. I'll come back. Aditya, over
Sure.
to you.
Yeah, Gautam and Ronak. So, my personal view has been that OPEX has been growing much faster than the CAPEX business, right? CAPEX used to happen a lot when there was a depreciation benefit, right? So, because of that, there was a lot of CAPEX investment. In fact, actually, wind industry has grown because of the CAPEX business largely, right? Till the IPP business has come up. But after that IPP business, after the depreciation benefit has gone, a lot of people have started evaluating between OPEX and CAPEX, and then started choosing more on the OPEX front, right? Because the equity payback has deferred, right? Ultimately, right? But now again, that equation is changing with the GST increasing from 5% to 12%, which ultimately CAPEX guys can take into account and we can't take it. Probably things will again move back again to the in favor to the CAPEX. But as of now, we are seeing the OPEX is much faster, largely because the scale of the business is also increasing, and kind of financing. As we are talking about, when we raise financing on the consolidated at the parent level, right, both for debt as well as equity, we are able to get much better rates for financing, right? Much better technology, because we have been able to procure modules in bulk, right? Some of these the key components in bulk, right? Therefore, to some of these advantages we'll have to see. But GST is a huge game changer, right? With 5% to 12%, it and these capex guys will be able to absorb the GST. Let's see where ultimately ball falls into which court.
See, whether you are if you are an end consumer or you are an end consumer catered by an OPEX investor, GST is an acquisition cost, asset acquisition cost,
Yep.
because in the OPEX power cell leg you don't have GST. So that's definitely, it's a negative development. Having said that, at Urjan we follow two things. For residential rooftop, we are productized. The product is like a, say, residential housing society. You have 100 kilowatt, you pay 30%, and remaining 70% you can pay in 12, 24, or 36 EMIs. So that, and we try to decide the tenor where your debt servicing is not impacted. Your savings should be more than sufficient to cater your debt requirement, I mean loan repayment requirement. And thereafter the benefit comes to you, you take it after 4 years or 5 years, the asset is completely yours. So you are trying to productize financing, that you pay in EMIs 12, 36, 26, or 24, this kind of product. On the lending side, we have a small asset book. If it is residential rooftop, we lend it from there. But one thing is hopeful is that worldwide, the sustainable capitalism is a mandate. I mean, nobody will, when they get loan from bank, if you are not doing anything on the ESG front. So
Yep.
any bank, be developer or any global fund, those money, I think access to those money, it's going to increase from here onwards. What pace we don't know, but definitely the money which will comply with ESG mandate, that quantum of money from bank or any overseas investors is going to significantly increase in next couple of years. So this financing, access to finance, whether a end consumer or a leverage asset player, it's going to improve. I mean that there we don't have any second thought on that. I mean the liquidity in this space is going to improve here onwards. So anything else from Hiten or Ronak? Are you financing any of your project, or what kind of product you are using?
Yeah, we are. So I think till date we've done almost 10 megawatts of financing ourselves. We've been financing largely set of customers where we are very comfortable. There are certain issues that whatever, as in we have financed projects where the first go around was done by a set of marquee developers there were, but for whatever reasons, the continuation was not possible. So we definitely are financing projects by ourselves. Uh, so one really good point that Gautam you brought up, and I think Aditya would agree, is the mandate of having sort of a green-led development is definitely increasing in large, in almost all customer cases. So we just closed a megawatt of an order in around 200 kilometers from here, and SIDBI in its loan proposal had a mandate that whatever was the project capital loan disbursed, 10% of it had to go towards a sustainability initiative, which was either linked to water and solar, and a no-brainer for most of them was solar. So we definitely seeing that blend coming up, and I think it's only going to increase with the matter of time. So, and I'm sure Aditya was referring to the same in terms of the equity and debt that can be raised by sort of an institution with the likes of AMP or AMP Plus would be much better than some of the others. But yeah, absolutely. I think ESG financing is becoming real even for a smaller MSME. Although they don't understand that it's an ESG package, but they have to swallow it, they like it or not.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, next one. I mean, on the agenda point of our discussion. I mean, the space is very crowded. The scope is huge. We can coexist, but only thing is space is we at times believe it's too crowded, right? And quality of installation, be it hardware, be it service, there is no common standard, right? And everybody wants to kill each other and give the best price. But of course, in a long term, cheapest could be the most expensive, right? That customer doesn't know. So how do you, I mean, it's an open question to you, all of you, one by one. I mean, how do you address that and how do we address that? Hiten, or, I mean, you want to take it?
Sure, Gautam. So we feel that being having a close customer intimacy and earning the credibility from the customer on our advice and our point of view on what to make up good quality components and also the standards that we have to follow in
Can
life.
everyone clearly hear Hiten?
No, no, no.
No,
Hiten, you can switch off the video. Maybe the network will improve a bit. We
sure,
like your face and you're smiling, but still,
yeah, I hope this helps now. I feel that earning the credibility of the end customer early in the game is helpful so that you are able to draw an apple to apple comparison and really what makes a good quality components and standards to be followed while installing a solar project. At the same time, I also agree with you that a lot of our peers from the same community, we are so much committed to be aggressive and get to the right rate and always push the price one by one. Everybody start dropping 50 paisa, 1 rupee on the capex cost to the customer, and eventually it creates a stress on not only the company who wins it, but also the others who have to follow such low benchmarking. And I think that is a lesson for all of us to be responsible about. That we need to start dealing with fair contracts and fair price to be productive and
okay, understood, understood then. On anybody else, I mean, you are owning asset
Yeah,
and of
Gautam.
course,
So I have, yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah, Gautam. So I have couple of points to throw on this agenda. This one, see, this is as we are sitting in the same board. So the major differentiator or the major thing that is going to play now is your sustainability. How you basically make the project, or how quality your project is. So this is the basic difference between a developer and an EPC player. So EPC player basically, so they're the difference in the mindset. So since I am coming from a developer background, I have worked into EPCs also. Now I'm working into both the spaces. So I've seen this thing that you basically have to give a quality solution to the customer. The only reason is that because the only thing the customer can come back to you is because of your quality. It's not anything you dilute your quality, or you are not able to give a quality project. So definitely you are out of the market. So this is how you are going to differentiate yourself from the other players, because there are a lot of players in the market now. So
Absolutely.
this is going to be the differentiator in terms of this thing.
Absolutely. So no point competing with somebody who is giving the cheapest, but very, very in long term, very, very unimpressive, right? They will not continue. Okay, Ritu, I mean,
Yeah.
on the asset side also, when you compete and bid for a project, whether it's 370 or 390 or 330, so for you, quality is utmost important because you own the asset and you are the
Yeah.
investor. So how is the competition in OPEX? We read on newspaper, it's
It
230.
is it is extremely competitive. Okay. Extremely competitive. Now, we were talking about depreciation in the earlier point, right?
Correct.
Uh, because Amplus was always about building an asset portfolio,
Mhm.
we never participated in that accelerated depreciation model. While we had our competitors at the time, most of them were doing it. So the assets would not lie on their books, but would lie on some other company's books that had profits.
Correct.
And then the advantage that one gained out of it was also reflecting in the PPA tariff. In fact, we used to try and explain to our clients why that was a bad idea. Why, having such kind, a tripartite three-party marriage was not a very, very, we felt, clean way of going about things. And of course, it was also at some level, it was also making use of a certain facility, almost like taking advantage of a situation, right?
Absolutely.
From what it was meant to be to something totally different. So, any case, that once that 80 became 40, that game kind of evened out. We've lost a few deals, but we've not chosen to go down that route. So, actually, we've been very, very steadfast in our approach. We've never played the numbers game. We've never played the, L1 game. We've never compromised on processes, on quality. Quality still you can see out there, right? Safety during construction
Mhm.
is a cost that is not visible after that. There is safety in the plant, which is visible after,
Absolutely.
but safe practices during construction are not visible post construction, and they come at a cost.
Of
Now,
course.
as an organization, we've not ever compromised on that. So we have very often, if I compare with my peers, been, I don't think there'd be too many projects where we would have originally been an L1, but because of what our proposition has been, early stages, there's very few assets to show, right? Today, I have a lot of assets to show.
Correct.
Or even like when we were like 3-4 years into operation, there's enough assets to show. But until that point in time, there's very little because everything is like 1 or 2 years old. It's just spanking new. And you're talking about, the way I have built it, the way I have designed it, it will last its full life. Yes, I can show you performance till date, but it's
Mhm.
still very early stages. So communication and what you communicate to the client becomes very, very important in earning trust.
Absolutely.
And being able to convince them, obviously, if the gap is too high, you lose out. And sometimes it's been very reputed companies because they look at, okay, this is a very marquee client, or we are just entering the market. We'll have to win this even if we don't make any money on that project. So there have been those instances also, when people bid very, very low and you're wondering what it is that what is happening, and you lose out sometimes, but a very few instances. and a certain premium can be commanded for quality, for processes, for professionalism, for safety. And we have been able to do that. So I'm not saying that it's not for our brand, but for what we offer,
Mhm.
nobody else can offer it lower.
Absolutely. So many times I say one thing to our sales guys is saying that sustainable energy business has to be sustainable at the first place. So if you want to build something where you want to impress a customer very, very short term, and of course to your investor also with a quick return without, I mean, by compromising a lot of compliance and safety standard, that's definitely not sustainable. So anything and same competition I think lies on the hardware side as well. So if
It
we are
doesn't help, Gotham, at the end of the day, if I have an asset that, now I want refinancing. If the
absolutely.
tariff is not good, you will not get refinancing, no?
See, one can Ritu, I mean, try to build a portfolio and quickly sell it off to somebody,
Yeah,
and
so if that's your game, that, I'm here and I want to
absolutely.
get out in 3 years and this is my game plan, that's separate. But if you're going to build a success, but even there, people are going to look at, what pricing it is there, what pricing is there. Does it make sense for me to buy it or not?
So you build a history. You build a history. If you want to stay there in the industry for a longer term, I think there is
If you're
unanimous.
going to build value, then it cannot, then you have to be very, very sure of that you have to also get value out of it for yourself.
Completely agree. Similarly, the competition lies on the hardware side as well. Ronak, if you have anything to add this side, that I mean, you compete with other brands, and vis-a-vis the brand you sell, so you must be facing similar competition there as well, right?
Sure, I think that's an ongoing tussle, which is almost sort of a daily grind in terms of what make model you do and what sort of other products are giving. Very honestly, and I think largely most of the panelists here today, I don't, so I can say with confidence, have at least covered a 5, 6, 7 year journey. So I was just having a discussion with my asset management team, and some of our plants are now coming into renewals of either inverters if they were 5 years, which were initially done because of whatever compulsions there were, or are now coming into a part of some of the longer term asset sort of quality issues they do. So we are very proud that we are managing one of the oldest plants in India, which was commissioned in 2010. So it's 12 years now. What we have really, really seen is, and what probably even Ritu was saying, that asset quality has two parts. It is safety during construction and safety for maintenance. And we have started seeing issues on plants that even if we have not commissioned them, but we are currently operating them because we have a big origination business as a part of our asset management, where we are almost managing 100 plus megawatts across India now. We have started seeing that whatever was done in the haste, or how can I say, in the fanfare of getting something commissioned, now is started to show its sort of ugly, it's rearing its ugly head, both in terms of quality, both in terms of installation behaviors. We've started seeing, as in we've started seeing even the best of products that was the rave at that point of time sort of crumbling under its own weight now. So very honestly, I think, and I think Gautam, you put up this question a little while earlier, like what are the standards we want to set for ourselves? Do we want to go to a BIS? Do we want to go to an IEC? Do we want to go to whatever EN standards for some of the products that we go to? But very honestly, none of these standards very are not fair to how an Indian setup operates, because having that shifting goalposts and every time trying to convince something on what hardware you're going to use and why, or even if the hardware might not be of their choice, but what we are really trying to bring up to them is, if we are doing the EPC both as a capex or being in the developer shoes or taking on the COMC, because we do a lot of government work as well. It's Kalpa who is responsible for the asset quality, for the maintenance, for the management of the asset. So we are underwriting the risk of the product we are choosing to deliver. And we've started seeing that give returns. So this is a call that we took 3 or 4 years back, that not to have any EPC business done without having an asset management piece attached to it. And primarily it was because what was happening was there was undercutting, um, or there was a whatever sort of a mirage created for some hardware saying it's the best in the world and you're never going to get it. And now we don't see that even being sold in the market. So I think as EPCs, we have to start sort of evolving our services, and that's what we need to keep doing.
Okay. So my next question is to Nishant. I mean, Radiance, they not only build, I have seen them buying assets as well, and they operate. And when you operate, of course, the O&M cost goes up depending on the quality of the asset. So any point from you, Nishant?
No, so I agree with other panelists. The quality of asset plays a very, very important role when we go ahead and evaluate any asset for acquisition. And we have seen companies cutting around corner and then again going for refinancing and not getting the realized valuation, which comes at a roadblock. So yeah, the choice of asset, the choice of equipment, the kind of products you put in on day one goes a long way in achieving the larger goal of company. So yeah, we should you know so avoid cutting around corners whenever the decision is on board, and that will create a sustainable market for sustainable companies like us.
Thank you. Thanks, Nishant. So my last point is about again the Maharashtra and the ecosystem. I mean, maximum of our portfolio. I mean, whatever you have deployed, 750 crores so far, is in either Maharashtra or Karnataka. So in Maharashtra, I believe the ecosystem is far more evolved. The acceptability of solar, be the regulator, be it consumer, is much better, and the pace of adoption is very, very high compared to other states. Any specific, I mean, agenda you believe it needs more attention or probably it can be improved? You would specifically call out any one of you? I
The
mean, even
agenda, Gautam,
Gautam,
which comes
I
into
would
my
love
mind.
to. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
yeah,
Ashish.
Ashish, go ahead.
Yeah. So Gautam, the only thing that comes into my mind that everything is good. The market is looking good, bright, everything is there, but a lot of uncertainty at the supply chain side when you see. And now with this war coming into picture and the oil prices going up, again you have that vicious circle of freight going up, coming into that of there is like commodity prices, commodity anything, module commodity prices, aluminium, glass, everything. So again, you see that we are not able to come out of that vicious circle that has actually come up since last 2 years because of COVID and this one, and then again the government policies, which are becoming sort of, I would say, it will take time for the for us to get evolved along with the policies to get into that kind of a mindset to be dependent and all those things. So that's basically a challenge that that we need to overcome that challenge. We
Okay, thank
definitely
you.
Yeah,
have
Ashish. So
if
we
we
have
are
been
focusing
actually.
on these kind of stuff.
I'll tell you, Ashish. We have been in last 1 year. You know what happened with the modules, the way it has behaved. We have been actively working on devising these module index-based PPAs, right? Because when we were sitting into mid of last year, we never knew where it will go. Ultimately, we end up purchasing module at least 5 to 7 cents higher than we had actually envisaged, right? So we, as an industry, we should actually push with the consumers to agree to some of these risks. Like some of these our investors want a low risk, low investment returns on their capital invested, right? So if we can pass on some of these risks to the investors, to the consumers, it requires a lot of hard work explaining them, what is happening. But we have seen that acceptability, because some of they are also procuring modules, right? When the power crisis in China happened, some of our ultimate off-takers also got affected because of that. So they appreciated the events which has actually happened. But as an industry, we need to come up with these risks and then try to find a solution for that, right? Now, ALMM, we are talking about there's no module availability. What's going to happen 1st of April?
So very, very interesting point, Aditya. I mean, few of the PPAs we
Correct,
have
correct.
closed where we have documented. I mean, of course, like that's a hard negotiation and convincing the customer saying that impact of BCD has to be renegotiated. If for example, panel price openly you have taken X rupees per watt, if it goes up, that impact, whether 1 rupee means like 1.1 paise or something, so that needs to be openly and transparently passed on to
Discuss.
the consumer. So we have closed a few deals where the BCD impact or the
Yeah,
ALMM impact is handed
we,
off.
we, we have done that for all the PPAs when this GST happened, right? It just happened overnight. Within 15 days, nobody expected 5% to 12%, right? GST. So we had to do for this thing. But Gautam, right, if you allow me, I've been wanting to about this ALMM issue that everyone is discussing, right? And from the day one this ALMM notification came, personally I believe that it is not at all legally enforceable. The notification is ultra virus to electricity act itself, right? So it's a tussle between us and the government always keep happening, right? So it's not that we just have to be always on the defensive mode. Yeah, ALM aa gaya hai, so we need some kind of extension. I'll tell you. So let me share what the ALM notification says, what electricity act says, where is the loophole lies, right? That's what I've said in most of the my internal and as well as external discussions, right? So I'll just share what the LM notification says, then I'll just share the Electricity Act. Right. Just
But Aditya, tell me one thing, many of the issues cannot be solved in court or cannot be debated if the whole ecosystem or the authorities are not.
we if they can look, I'm saying agreed, but it can be argued with the government, right? If
Absolutely.
something
Can be.
something is not in line with the Electricity Act, right? At least it can be put forth to the government that you come up with a proper. When this wind thing happened, right? They have not come up with the wind that you cannot take power or you cannot apply for open access if you don't use the wind RLMM turbines, right? So let me explain to my point to all the audience. Then we can probably discuss the merit of that. It may not be very strong, but at least I want to put forth this ideas to everyone.
Sure. Snehil, how much time do we have? We have 5-7 minutes now.
Just a minute. I think I've shared.
You,
Sorry,
you can
I actually have shared the wrong this thing. I'm just wondering how to share this.
you can explain the concept. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
think the
okay. So I'll tell you. So what the precisely LMM notification says that any project applying for open access from 1st of April has to use the LM modules, right? What Electricity Act, Section 9 of Electricity Act clearly says that under that you any person who has constructed a captive project has right to has right to wheel the electricity to the destination of its own use. So you can come up with a notification to use this module, that module, technology, this, that, right? You cannot come up with a notification that I will not take your power from X point to Y point if you don't use this technology, right? That is under the not allowed in the Electricity Act. So that was the idea behind. So if they have come up with a certain notification, we need to find some kind of a loophole and then throw it back to them. Then probably negotiate. So negotiate when on the front foot rather than being on the back foot. Right? Because LM aa gaya, so let's find some. Let's pray the government that they extend it for another 6 months, right?
So
So
Aditya, in similar line, many of the policies, for example, legally LT is your side. Whenever you merge power there, ideally you don't need HT is utilities property. There are many policies where actually rather authorities are infringing into the right of the consumer. So similarly, this could be one of the item.
yeah, what is LT?
So the low tension side, when you do net meter, that many of the
Okay.
consumers are getting notice nowadays saying that you have not taken net metering approval or NOC. Legally, it's
Mm-hmm.
not required because LT is the low side. After my transformer in an industrial project, that's our property. I'm synchronizing, but by then it's my property already. So there are
Mm-hmm.
few whoever has gone to court, they won the case, and we had one experience recently in another state. I mean, we got a notice from the consumer. Notice was received by the consumer. The consumer, with our help, went to the court and they won the case without anything. Rather, Discom was.
Absolutely correct. So, no, a couple of years back, MEDA has started, the government of Maharashtra started issuing ED, applicability of ED to all the rooftop projects. Right. So, we showed them the Electricity Act that any generation happening less than 100 volt doesn't have to pay ED. It's written in the Electricity Act of Maharashtra. Right. And actually, solar generates on the 38 volt. So, if we go to the court, we have a strong case to argue, and then it will go for a long time, right? Why you want to basically compromise on the sustainability agenda for a very small amount of revenues?
No.
So some of these things we have to be very smart and play along with that, right? That's what the
Great.
limited
Good,
time we
good,
have.
good point, Aditya. But for the larger forum, let's do one thing. Quickly. If you have any concluding comment, other than that, we are open to question answers. Snail can take over. If anyone has any closing comment, please go ahead. Otherwise, over to you, Snail. Snail, can you hear us?
I would just like to say that, yes, sir, yes, sir. Uh, Attendees, you have posted the questions In the chat box. I would just request you all to post it in the Q&A box. I just give you 1 minute time to post it over there. Meanwhile, Gautam sir, I'll just show you one question in on stage so that you can take it up.
Sure. Okay, so I think there's a question on Atmanirbhar and see there is no second thought on it's my point. I'm not course anyone can take it. Second thought on that we should use made in India product, but it's only question of how much you can supply. The supply and demand imbalance is what we are talking about. I think everybody agrees to the point that we should gradually move to made in India product. So there is no second thought on that on my side. So anyone has any point? Whoever representing the hardware company, maybe Somajit or anyone.
Yeah, I think so. It's true that we should be supporting the Indian companies, and we definitely, even on our part, also we are very much positive on that side. So only the thing is that to cater the present, the consumption, the present demand of the market. So it is not actually, as we are already, all the panelists have already discussed, that it is not aligned with the kind of demand that we are having now. So once this is in alignment, I think there is no question that we should be using any other panel, or if we are having high technology panels, then we should go for any imported one. So this is only matter of fact that it's kind of demand supply thing, and once it is there in the place, I think each and every one of the not only the EPC and all the stakeholders are more of interested to go with the Indian manufacturers.
And also, the concern is on the arbitrary act from the government. The notification came on 13th of Jan, saying then 1st of April you need to basically use these modules, right? Otherwise, you cannot apply for open access or not use net metering. We have the projects which are under construction now, right? So the concerns are around the arbitrary act of the government on these important matters, right? Without any mitigation plan for the actual people who are actually investing. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add to demand and supply point, I think all of us agree that solar module manufacturing is an R&D intensive industry. Now the technology keeps changing from poly to mono to bifacial. A lot of things are being tried out. The rating of module itself has gone from 320 to 70 to now 540. Now it's a factor of demand and supply. The more the volume, the better the investment in R&D, and as soon as the manufacturers recover their initial cost for one line, they will be able to migrate to other line. Although Seki has been doing a very good job in creating that volume for Indian market, but that is not enough. So even if someone puts a line, develops one particular range of module, it will be very difficult to migrate or upgrade to newer and newer technology and modules. Is what my limited understanding is based on the current manufacturing ecosystem in India.
See, my 2 cents again will be, see, PLI is a far better incentive than stopping something. I mean, if you promote by default, the money flowing to the manufacturing sector, which is related to solar, will improve. And of course, that benefit will pass on and you build more capacity. So it's all about balancing how fast and how quick you want to move in terms of prohibiting any category of hardware. That pace and balancing is what we are talking about. Anybody else?
It's also a question of, perhaps looking at the larger national interest here. And I don't think compromising on module quality, module efficiency, and reliability is in the national interest. Because once you've set something, once you've used a module, repowering is going to be extremely expensive and virtually, impossible for the next decade at least. So you're going to have to, you'll increase the costs, you'll have 20% higher land cost, higher BOS cost, and 20% lesser generation for the same space. It is not the most effective use, or uh, not the wisest thing for even solar energy generation security. The end goal is energy generation, right? Not energy capacity. So I really think that the harm that this will do to the entire country, because everybody uses electricity, right? Whether it's an individual homeowner or a small business or a large conglomerate. So that versus a few companies with obsolete technology that you're trying to protect. So please protect something where there is value, but I don't think we need to be protecting something which is not suitable for the future. And that's the mistake we are making at this point in time.
I can take one analogy. If you compare solar industry with the car industry, unfortunately, we are at the
Absolutely.
bicycle stage. We are at the bicycle stage.
Right.
I
Not
mean,
just that, you talked about the car industry. For years, we had to use those premier Padminis and ambassadors. How long did they survive once competition, modern competition came in? So, decades of protection is not enough to save you if your product is not future ready.
understood. Any other?
Another thing, just to add to what Ritu mentioned. So, unfortunately, the capex cycle for manufacturing, specifically the solar modules and probably even inverters, is a very long cycle which has a gestation of at least 60 months. If you look at solar industry over the last decade and a half, I think we have taken four quantum leaps of technology. And most of the manufacturers who probably were manufacturing earlier are not quicker to adopt to the newer technology because their capex costs are not being recovered. Volume there is. So the catch-22 situation, I hope the PLI answers a part of it. But very honestly, it goes back to how we are actually rating and gearing manufacturing of components. And that's probably, again, related to how innovations are sort of done in our quality cycle, or where are we trying to pitch. So I have never really seen any module manufacturer in the country really talk about developing a 600 watt or whatever, a monoPERC module, long before we have heard from the global competitors and peers. And the catch up is really what is killing the industry. So unless and until we are able to sort of leapfrog one or two cycles of development so that we are ready when time comes, I think it's always going to be a sort of a chicken and an egg situation where honestly the EPCs, as Ritu mentioned, because we're taking on 25 years of performance risk, it's a very, very hard call to take. Although none of the customers I have had an interaction with, and I think everyone in the panel can answer that, have had a question: Can we use something Indian? And we have to probably step aside from our patriotic self and say, probably for the betterment of the project and betterment of the customer, we have to say probably not. So that's sort of the hard line we have to take.
Understood. So there is one more question
So
from.
that's sort of.
Sorry, someone is talking. Okay, there is one more question from Mr. Vivekanand. I think they are offering OPEX
I'll
solution.
show
Will
it.
they eliminate? Okay. Anyone wants to take it?
Yeah, I can quickly say currently there are none direct subsidies available for rooftop solar unless and until it's bundled into some capital incentive program for the end customer by the nature of business they are. So the answer is, other than the depreciation which can be availed, but again, that is as a part of the Section 32 if you're available for, but there are no subsidies per se for rooftop solar in Maharashtra any longer.
In fact, I don't think other than depreciation and some interest incentive, because solar qualifies as a priority sector lending, bank may pass on few basis points to you. And that other than depreciation, I don't think there is. I agree with that. There is no other incentive.
So, any final remark you want to make, or shall we close it?
Yes. So, I mean, if there is any question, you can probably collect them and send it to the panelists parallelly. So, let's conclude this. So, thank you very much, everyone, for patient hearing from the audience side, and thank you everyone for the participation. I think one thing is very clear that this industry has a very early stage, and the opportunity is growing. It's much bigger than any other industry. I mean, if you look at rooftop itself, the target for next 1 to 2 years, which is, I mean, we are running little behind that itself, like some 15 to 20 billion dollar, which you can say that like 1.5 lakh crore kind of deployment of capital, be it capex or be it opex. It's a huge space, And the deployment of money in this space is definitely commercially viable and environmentally absolutely responsible. And way forward is one thing I'm repeating myself, that sustainable capitalism, any lending you want to avail or any facility you want to avail, be it an individual to certain extent, or definitely it's an industrial consumer, commercial consumer, the accessibility to this fund will go up, and the deployment will happen only when you are more compliant with ESG mandate, and it will percolate to even eventually individual player. So it's a huge space, and there's a good opportunity for all of us. And the technology is evolving very, very fast. There are a few minor hindrance for the time being, and I hope that we all hope actually as industry partners that this will settle down soon, and hopefully Indian economy will be fueled with more and more sustainable energy way forward. So thank you very much, and thanks for your participation.
Thank you, Gautam, for excellently moderating the
Thank
session, and
you.
thanks to
Thank you,
all
Gautam.
the panelists as well for their great
Thanks, you too. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Solar
very much
Quokka.
to all panelists for this wonderful session. And a very special thanks to Gautam sir for superbly managing this session. As always, you were impressively well prepared and extremely professional in the way you kept us all at the height of attention for almost an hour. Thank you everyone for extending your time and support for the event. We promise you to come back with more exciting topics very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Good day.